So back at the first of the year, Cyelee came out with the Chameleon, and this was their first optic to use the Stig RS system. And basically what this system does is it cuts down on starbursting for people who have astigmatism, like myself. And it actually works really well. Well, now Cyelee has released the CAT SRS6 Pro. Let's check it out. Alright, so here is our Cyelee CAT SRS6 Pro. Now I'm going to bring a picture up on the screen so you can see everything that comes in the box. Now this is the second optic that I've reviewed on the channel from Cyelee that has the Stig RS system. Now the CAT Pro does have the RMSC footprint. Some people call it the Holosun K footprint. Now the window size on this is pretty decent for an RMSC footprint dot. It does have a 21 by 16.5 millimeter window, and it is a coated lens. Now I've got the dot turned on. I do have it turned all the way up. This has 11 brightness settings, 9 daytime settings, and 2 NV. Now this dot is a 6 MOA dot. And one other thing that I like that they did put a notch or a backup iron sight here on the back of the optic. So if the dot fails, you can use the backup sight with the front sight on your gun. It is super bright. Now it does have a side load battery. It runs on a CR1632 battery, and it does have a 50,000 hour battery life. Obviously that is going to be on the lowest setting. This optic has shake awake. The optic will shut off after 4 minutes of sitting still. So if you have this just laying on the table or sitting in your safe, after 4 minutes, it will deactivate. As soon as you grab your gun, it will turn right back on. Now, if you do not want to use the shake awake, you can hold the down button or the minus button for about 3 seconds, and it will shut the optic off. Just keep in mind that the shake awake is not going to work if you manually shut off the optic. Now your brightness level adjustment buttons are here on the side. You got your plus here at the top and your minus at the bottom. They are very nice and tactile clicks and audible. This actually has lock mode, so you can put this on the brightness setting that you want, and you can hold the plus and minus button together for 4 seconds. Your emitter will flash, and then it is in lock mode. So no matter what brightness level you have it on, as long as it is in lock mode, you cannot adjust the brightness if you hit the plus or minus button. And if you want to get out of the lock mode, you do the same thing. Hold the plus and minus for 4 seconds, and it will unlock, and you can adjust your brightness level up and down or shut the optic off. Now, one thing that I like to do in every optic review video is test the windage and elevation adjustments to see how tactile and audible they are. If we look here on the windage, we have an R with an arrow pointing down. They are tactile, you can feel the clicks, but just barely. Not really audible. And the same thing on the elevation, you do have the up and the arrow. A little hard to see, but you can see it. You can feel the clicks. They're not real tactile. Definitely not audible, but that's not a big deal. I have never had a Cyelee optic lose 0, but just keep in mind your windage and elevation adjustments are not that tactile or audible. Now your windage and your elevation adjustments are 1 MOA per click. I went on Cylee's website and the Amazon store, and I looked in the user manual, and I cannot tell you what the total travel is on the windage and elevation, but they are 1 MOA per click. Now the CAT Pro has a 7075 aluminum housing. It does have an IPX7 waterproof rating, and it does come with Cyelee's lifetime warranty. Well, I am going to apologize now because you are about to witness some of the worst shooting I have ever done on this channel. I don't know what my problem was. I was out filming the shooting footage for 4 different videos, and it didn't matter what gun was in my hand. I could not keep my shots in the A-zone. And I figured as the day went on, it would get better, but it actually got worse. But we will all end up having days like this, and it is what it is. Alright, we've got all our hits on the first piece of steel. This target is absolute garbage. All alphas, 3 Charlies. But then I looked up here and I threw a Charlie clear up here. And I believe we had a miss on this piece of steel. I know we had a miss on one of them. Definitely not a good day for me. Now, for the people that are watching that are new to the channel, my test gun that I'm using is the EAA Gerson Disruptor. And this is one of the guns in my collection that I really enjoy shooting. And I think our CAT Pro looks really good on this. So let's talk about the glass quality and the red dot itself. Just like any other Cyelee optic, these all have really nice glass in them. This has just the slightest blue tint to it. Now, as far as the brightness of the red dot goes, just like all the other Cylees, it is plenty bright. I had it turned all the way up when I got to the range, and then I went ahead and bumped it down a couple brightness levels, and that was all I needed throughout the entire review. Alright, we've got all our hits on the first piece of steel. Our next target, we've got all alphas, 1 Charlie. Alright, this one's ugly. We've got all alphas, but we've got a Charlie here and 2 Charlies over here. This looks pretty good. We've got all our hits on steel. Now, like I was saying, the Stig RS system worked great in the Chameleon with the red dot version and the green dot version. And the same holds true with our CAT Pro. Does it starburst? Yes. If you turn it all the way up, it still starbursts on me. But I do have pretty bad astigmatism. But like I said in the Chameleon video, even though it starbursts still a little bit, the starburst is really faint and the dot in the middle stays really crisp. It's kind of hard to explain unless you see it in person, but whatever this Stig RS system is, it really works. And I've had a lot of other friends here on YouTube that have been testing out the Cyelee optics that have this Stig RS system, and they all say the same thing. It works. So when we were going over all the specs on the optic at the beginning of the video, we talked a little bit about the window size, and I said that it's pretty decent size for an RMSC footprint dot. It's not the biggest windowed RMSC footprint dot that I've tested on the channel, but it's plenty big enough, and I was having no issue transitioning from the USPSA targets to the steel targets. So all in all, I am real happy with the window size on this optic. Now, after I wrapped up shooting the USPSA and the steel targets, I wanted to move on and shoot some 10-shot groups like we do in all the other optic review videos. And that went just about as well as shooting the USPSA and steel targets. So after I shot the first 2 10-shot groups, I moved over to the back of the truck to do a little bit of torture testing on this optic, and I started racking the slide off the tailgate of the truck using the optic, and then I went back to shooting a couple more 10-shot groups, and I'm happy to say that the optic did not loosen up on the slide, and it held 0 just fine. Now the next question people are going to ask, does the Shake Awake work? And I am happy to report that the Shake Awake works just fine. I am doing something new on the channel now with these optics. I don't test the Shake Awake till after we go to the range, and the optic's taking a beating, and then test the shake awake. I just think it's a better test. So let's start talking about the pros and cons of the CAT Cyelee SRS6 Pro. And we're going to start with the cons first, because I've only really got a couple cons with this optic. The first con with this optic is the fact that Cyelee has like 5 or 6 different versions of this CAT optic out now. This was actually one of Cylee's first optics they came out with. If we go back to the original CAT, and there's a CAT X, and there's a CAT Pro, and I do believe there's a CAT G. It's really hard to keep track of what all these different versions of the CAT are. Some of these are green dots, some are red dots, some have the multi-reticle system, and this one here has the astigmatism reduction system on it. And that leads into my second con with this optic, is the fact that I wish, being that it is a Pro version, that it did have a multi-reticle system. Now, I've said it before in other videos, I personally don't care about the multi-reticle system. I always just use the dot, but there are a lot of people out there that like to use a dot and a circle, and I would have liked to seen this come with not only that astigmatism reduction system, but also a multi-reticle system. And my last con with this optic, I just hope they do come out with a green dot version of this, because I really do like this optic. I just prefer a green dot over a red dot. Now let's dive into all the pros with this optic, and there are quite a few pros. The first thing I want to touch on is this lockout system that they're using now. So if you are going to use this optic for carry, and you've heard me say this in a lot of optic reviews, sometimes I'm not a big fan of the button designs because they have the buttons for your brightness level adjustments sticking too far off the optic, and I just worry about bumping those when you are carrying the gun. That's why I like the buttons to be recessed into the optic, so you don't have to worry about that brightness level getting adjusted up or down, or worst case scenario, the optic were to get shut off. But not only did Cyelee recess these buttons into the optic, they also have that lockout mode. So that's super cool. You can get that brightness level adjusted right where you want it. Hold the 2 buttons down at the same time and lock that in right there, and then you do not have to worry about anything getting adjusted on the optic. It's just a super cool feature. The other great pro with this is the fact it has a side load battery, because back in the day when these optics first started coming out with the RMSC footprint, most of them were bottom load batteries, and we're seeing pretty much all the companies getting away from that now. So the side load battery is a nice touch. The other nice thing about this optic when we're talking about using this for a carry option is, like I said earlier, you do have the backup iron sight built into the optic. So if the optic goes down, I can use the backup sight on the optic with the front sight on my disruptor. The next thing I want to talk about is the protection on the lens itself. So the lens is going back on an angle this way, then you have the hood on the housing going this way, and you have a lot of protection around the lens. And even with me beating this off the tailgate of my truck, we do have some scratches here on the housing itself in the front, but we have 0 damage to the lens, other than the fact that the lens is super dirty right now because I have not cleaned this gun yet. And the last thing is just the Stig RS system itself. It works very well. Like I said, I've got really bad astigmatism, and the last 2 dots that I've tested from Cyelee that have this system, they work great. They're not 100% perfect, but they are a lot better than a lot of other red dots that are out there on the market. So if you have really bad astigmatism, I recommend that you try one of these optics with the Stig RS. One other thing I want to touch on here real quick too before we get out of here is talking about the 6 MOA dot. I know that's going to turn some people off, and some people are going to be very happy that they have a 6 MOA dot version. Most people like a 3 MOA dot, and I get it. That's probably my favorite. It's just an all-around good MOA for a dot on a pistol. So keep in mind the 6 MOA dot is obviously going to be a little bit bigger than what you're used to if all you run is 2 and 3 MOA dots. And I've said this before, a 6 MOA dot is good for concealed carry, and it's also good for competition shooting like USPSA and IDPA, because most of the targets that you're going to be shooting, they're all going to be 25 yards or less, and the 6 MOA dot works just fine for that type of shooting. Now, if you're going to put this on a rifle or even a PCC, and you start shooting out to 50 yards or even going out to 100 yards, well, that 6 MOA dot is going to really cover up your target. So these are just things that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at the MOA on a dot. And for all the people out there wondering how the Harbor Freight weapon light is holding up, I am happy to say that this thing just keeps on going. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.